Never before has a party threatened to not pay our bills, except for 2011, the last time that Speaker Boehner and some of the same people in the House of Representatives fought.
All right, that was from an interview the president just conducted with AP a few minutes ago. He's actually wrong on that. I mean, the party that did that was the Democratic Party with President Bush and then Senator Obama voted against raising the debt ceiling, saying that with the tax cuts and the military spending, he was trying to send a message. So when obviously you vote against raising the debt ceiling, you are effectively forcing what could be cataclysmic developments to get your way. So it's a fair game that both parties play this sort of game. You can call it a reckless game, a nuclear game, but it's a game that has been well played out by both political parties. He, of course, as a senator himself. Let's get the read from the markets and how this is all falling out with Sandra Smith from Chicago, Jonas Max Ferris in New York, Gary B. Smith in Washington, Stephen Pope in London. Sandra, to you first. Far more dangerous, and I think of concern to the markets, was the president's comments earlier this week that he was surprised the markets weren't more volatile than they have been and are in the face of all of this. In other words, I got the sense he was almost tempting a big sell-off, almost as if he seemed to want it. But what do you make of that?
Well, there has been that argument on Wall Street that he almost is talking the markets into a slide. But, you know, you're looking at the Dow over the course of the past week, and it's pretty much been flat since this government shutdown. And if you were to look at the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, Neil, very much in line with recent history when we've seen government shutdowns, they've actually gone higher over this 5-day shutdown period. So while the president might be sending a message to Wall Street and to the markets that this could be catastrophic, his words, not mine, that this could cause a freeze in the credit markets, et cetera, the market's trying to send a message right back to him, Neil, that, hey, we believe that the government will meet its debt obligations. The bond market's been rallying, and stocks have pretty much been very resilient through all of this.
You know, Gary B. Smith, the only way you could get the markets to really go into a free fall is if you do default, if you don't make good on those obligations like interest payment to bondholders. But that's something that wouldn't be inevitable even if you do, you know, not get a debt ceiling hike. So you could prioritize your bills and all of that. But is it proper for any leadership figure to be almost tempting that fate?
I think, Neil, it's disgusting, to be honest with you. I mean, is this what a leader does? I mean, if it was Ronald Reagan would probably say, look, this is a tough time, but we're professionals and we're going to work this out. There's nothing to be worried about right now. Only if you're the kind of mean-spirited person do you say the market should be worried. Because what you want to happen is you want the markets to collapse so the Republicans cave and you get everything you want. I think this is the poorest example of leadership since he's taken office.
Jonas Max Ferris, what is the fallout from this? If we do get to the point where we're getting closer and closer to October 17th and we supposedly run out of money, is that when they start feeling the heat?
Well, we've already seen some of the heat. I mean, the cost to insure U.S. government debt against default has gone up. Our dollar has been sliding for weeks now because of this. I don't want to downplay a debt default. Like, most major crises are because of the perception that debt's not going to get paid back. That goes to our mortgage bonds a few years ago. The Russian debt default, a much smaller government, a much smaller default, caused global problems in the emerging markets. So this could be a big deal, but it doesn't mean the president needs to remind people what a big deal it is. It is a big deal. He's not dishonest. He just should keep quiet. There's a lot of crises that risk America that we shouldn't know about necessarily. This, unfortunately, is probably one of them because it could be a very big situation.
Stephen Pope, from your vantage point out of London, how do we look here in this country?
Kind of reminds us of the Eurozone and the protracted political debates that go on in Brussels. I would sense that the markets are taking it in a very calm manner. Only Treasury bills that mature at the end of October have shown any turbulence at the current time. Otherwise, though, I think markets are taking it very calmly. We are well used to European politicians trying to meddle, so we ignore the president's words these last few days. But generally speaking, we are fully convinced that the United States will honour its coupon and maturity obligations, and we will find a way to overcome this.
Sandra, do the markets just factor in a settlement? In other words, that all the huffing and puffing notwithstanding, we will avoid that brink, or do they quietly fear maybe not?
Well, we can sit here and talk about the fact that the market's been resilient. Bond prices are up. The stock markets remain pretty much flat throughout this. But one thing is for sure, we've seen a lack of participation in the stock market. We've been seeing very low volumes, Neil, and that speaks volumes to what is happening to market psychology through all this. When you've got a president that's even mentioning the stock market and what could possibly happen if there is a default on government debt, then all of a sudden you've got investors that are concerned that it's not all about earnings and the progress and the actual performance of the companies in which they're investing. Now the government's involved in something that the president could say could affect the stock that they own. And that really damages investor psychology.
All right, folks, we're going to watch very, very closely. Thank you very, very much. In the meantime, that October 17th figure you hear again and again, that is the point at which the Treasury Secretary calculates we will run out of money. We'll be down to our last $30 billion or so, and we run out of money unless the debt ceiling is raised. There's hell to pay. What that also means is we're able to spend only about 65% of the money that we think we have. I know that gets a little arcane, but money still comes in, Uncle Sam. Money still comes into Washington. Senator Mike Lee says default is never an option. But, Senator, the president has equated the two. What do you think of that?
Well, I think he's wrong, and I also think he's trying to scare the American people, and this is all a distraction from the continuing resolution discussion. That's really a separate issue. The fact is that the Democrats, led by the president and by Harry Reid, are becoming the party of Obamacare. What they're saying is they're not willing to let us fund anything in government unless we're willing to fund everything in government, including Obamacare, which is a law that's costing a lot of people jobs and affordable health care, quite ironically. So that really is the problem here. We want to fund government, and we can fund most of government very quickly and with bipartisan support, if only they will allow us. Right now, they're holding their ground, and they won't.
Well, that is, the other side is targeting you and your colleague, Senator Ted Cruz, and you had a nasty run-in with the Republican leadership, to say nothing of some of your moderate Republican colleagues who gave you an earful. And now I know these are private, off-the-record affairs, but I am told that you were almost like a piñata. How do you feel about that?
Well, look, that's a distraction. It's unfortunate that some of my colleagues chose to leak details of that meeting, one-sided details, I would add. But we don't want to get derailed on that.
Well, who was attacking you? Who was attacking you? They all come out unnamed, ripping you a new one. But right. who attacked you? Was it all the obvious players?
Those anonymous sources will remain anonymous for the time being.
Was John McCain one of them? Was John McCain one of them?
Look, I'm not going to get into who was doing that. I want to echo what Jim Jordan said just a minute ago. The important thing to remember here is that we do have a very united House Republican caucus. We've got John Boehner and Eric Cantor acting heroically in order to protect the American people from the harmful effects of Obamacare.
Wait a minute, does that mean you don't think your Senate colleagues are?
Oh, what I'm talking about is the fact that it's the House of Representatives that has passed these continuing resolutions that will keep aspects of our federal government funded. They will keep funded national parks, veterans benefits, cancer research, and other important programs that have been passed with bipartisan support under the House Republican leadership. But so far, Harry Reid and the Senate Democrats refuse to allow those to move forward.
But your colleagues are blaming you for this. They're blaming you and Senator Cruz are going too far to this. Real quickly, you say what to that?
I say they're wrong. I say that there are a lot of people throughout the country who agree with this strategy, right. And there are a lot of people in the House of Representatives who agree with them.
Okay.
And if those people who say that we're to blame, if they really believe that, let them come forward and state so publicly.
All right. Senator, thank you very much. The other side, from Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. After this, by the way, the government is still shut down.